Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. More Pillage here as we take a look at another one of the new scenarios. This one is called, I think, hard to be sure with the spelling here, but or with the lettering, but we're going to call it the God of Saint Lunaire, so hopefully that is the right title. Interesting one here too, because we kind of get, it's not quite a multiplayer game, but as a multi-force game with multiple different factions, not just two, which we'll get to in a second. It'll make sense. But really cool background story on this, taking place in 1065 here with the siege of Dinan in Brittany. Really cool name here too, Duke Conan II. So there was a historical Conan, but obviously not the Conan that everyone would be thinking of. But nonetheless, really cool situation here where there's essentially a chance to fight it out over a church with some religious relics here as well. So the armies involved, and this is what we're talking about with multiple forces here. The attacking force is actually a split force with Normans and Anglo-Saxons with those specific percentages of the army, which we'll get to. The chieftain does have to be Anglo-Saxon, though, and so it kind of breaks a little bit of the normal rules there, but really neat idea for a scenario, and you could try this out with other combinations, see how it works. Defenders are all Britons. Equal forces here as far as 800 gold pieces each, so slightly larger game. The attacker deploys first, followed by the defender. Attacker has the initiative during the first turn of the game automatically, and it is a 10-turn game. Now the objective here, the attacker has to have control of the St. Lunaire's church relic at the end of the game. The defender wins if they can stop the attacker from taking the relic, so pretty simple, right? Now the weather in this one is deemed as clear skies, but again, as always, if we wanted to spice things up and change the scenario, we could bring in some of the weather rules if we wanted to. Now notes here, the church is at the heart of the battle, so its defense is essential. So you can swap the scenarios, factions for others if you prefer. So, which we kind of mentioned earlier, always need to try just different combinations and see how that changes the battle. Special rules here. So the church is at the center of the table. We'll take a look at the map in just a second. Follows all the usual rules for monasteries and abbeys. No defenders can be inside the church at the start of the game. Unlike the usual rules, if your scenery allows it, you can play inside the church with your figures, though. Now the relic, so to acquire it, you just need to succeed a search roll inside the church. However, unlike with ordinary search rolls, the church can never be empty and can always be searched again while the relic remains unfound. There's a river in the scenario as well. The small river isn't deep enough to require swimming rolls, but is essentially difficult terrain, although there are some footbridges. All the attackers, Norman figures, which again is 25% of the force, have to be cavalry. However, don't forget that cavalry figures can't form more than 25% of the figures in your army. So in other words, all the Normans will be cavalry, which means that is your maximum allotment of cavalry for the force. So your your Saxon forces will all be on foot, so no mounted Saxons in this. So neat how that kind of just ties in together. So, but you might have to modify that a little bit if you're using other factions just to tie different things together, but could present some interesting options, maybe some other types of restrictions just to spice things up a little bit. So, as we will see in a second, the church is at the center, surrounded by a few low walls and barriers. Road connects it to the defender's deployment area. There's a few scattered houses on the field, or amongst the fields and stuff. We got the river on the western and southern edges, kind of an L shape. Does have a lot of little pontoon bridges, wide enough to allow a cavalry base to cross, but not wider. Lots of barriers are strewn across the table, connecting buildings to vegetable patches, their surrounding fields, etc. So it should just be a straight shot. In other words, when you set this up, don't make it a straight shot for the defender to get right to the church, because obviously the game's going to be over pretty quick if they can start getting in searches for the relic. So let's take a look at the map then. So we got the attackers area, 4 inches there. Interestingly, that the river does kind of block a lot of their area. They could certainly swim across. There is, of course, or there are a couple of bridges within easy reach, though. So you got the one there, one here. You could also go all the way up along the side there, but that's getting towards the defenders. But really, probably just going to, sort of split your force here and go left and right. But you can see here kind of a lot of the little low walls here. This is some good defensive lining there, although the attackers will definitely get there first before the defenders, really. Defenders have just a lot of little stuff to get across here. They could send a force, like send the Normans along here to race towards the attackers and try and just start cutting them down from behind, which shouldn't take them overly long to do. So that could be a interesting strategy. But the idea is definitely going to be to get up into the church area, start blocking things off. So really trying to position themselves here as much as possible. Entrance to the church would appear to be there. So something that will be, something that will be a priority to get to prevent the attackers from getting there as fast as possible. So really, I think a lot of their forces would deploy here, make a beeline here as much as possible. Might make sense to sprinkle a few in here just to see what the enemy is doing, maybe get to some good defensive positions and try, head them off a little bit, maybe squeak into here as well. So you got pretty much a straight shot there. So it really depends on what the attacker is going to bring as well. But a couple of neat ideas, and certainly just a fun scenario as well. So it's another one of those sort of, we're going to fight for the sort of center of the table, but in this case we're hunting for that relic. So even if the attackers do get the early edge and start being able to search the church, really they still have to be able to get the relic. So just because they made it there doesn't mean they automatically succeed, right? They still got to make that roll. Now, it doesn't say anything else here about what the attackers need to do. So presumably, as soon as they get the relic, it's game over. You could maybe add an interesting extra bits to that. If you play this a bunch and it seems like it's just maybe too easy for them to acquire it, you could do something like saying that once they have the relic, they have to at least make it back across the water or something like that, or even just touching their deployment zone. So just maybe some different things to spice things up. But of course, the weather will add some nice variables as well. So a fun scenario. Let us know, guys, if you've played this one for Pillage. Again, it's one of the newer ones. Thanks so much for watching. Hit us up in the comments, like and subscribe, and we'll have more Pillage soon.